Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Stephen Conway. With me, as always, Jeremy Finestone. We are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. It has been one of the busier weeks we have had in a while, and we had so many matches to watch, both in the United States and over in Japan. And unfortunately, injuries made their way into the forefront. We've got a lot to talk about on this show. We're going to be talking about those injuries. We're going to be talking about the results of Resurgence, how that's going to affect things moving forward. And of course, we're going to cover the best of the Super Juniors. We have had the A Block finals. The B Block finals will take place very early tomorrow morning. So lots going on. We're going to get to it in just a bit. Jeremy, first of all, there's a lot on the mind here. Hi. I barely even know where to start, but I think we have to start with the bad news this week, which is
a lot of bad news. Taiji
Ishimori. That one's pretty scary. Mark Davis, less scary, but has a big impact on the Dominion card and things going forward. Mm-hmm. And then Mercedes Mone also. Mm-hmm. These are injuries that really do mean a lot. And I guess we'll start with Mercedes, of course.
And you missed one more.
I did miss one. Well, go ahead.
Will Ospreay.
Yeah, still kind of banged up. So, and we have Colin and Brad are watching live. Thank you for everybody who tuned in to sit with us today. We appreciate it. We're glad to see you. Obviously, a lot's gone on since we last talked here. So,
the curse of Forbidden Door is rearing its head again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're not kidding. That did happen last year, didn't it? Where everybody got hurt. But Mercedes Mone has suffered some sort of an injury. I don't know if we have the details. We've heard ankle, we've heard foot. I also heard knee, but I don't think it's knee.
I am willing to stake a hamburger on a broken ankle.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like, didn't it? So let's get into this now. She was, by all accounts, we believe, and of course they're not going to speak on this publicly, we believe that she was about to win the Strong Women's Championship. And so facing Willow Nightengale, which is what we assumed was going to be the final match. And it was. Willow defeated
There's a lot of evidence to suggest that Willow was not supposed to win that match, including an ad hoc speech at the very end that kudos to her. She wasn't ready to give a speech, but she gave a damn good speech, and that crowd got into it at the very end.
She handled things very, very well.
Absolutely.
And so did Mercedes, actually, considering these circumstances. So let's talk about that. They're up on the top rope. Looks like it's some sort of superplex spot or something going on where they're both going to fall off the top rope. Mercedes was on the outside looking into the ring, slips, loses balance, whatever happened, went all the way down to the floor, and then really couldn't put any weight on that right leg the rest of the match. And they went in and did a mostly improvised finish that got Willow Nightengale over, which tells you everything you need to know. Mercedes knew that whatever had happened was serious and that she wasn't going to put some ice on it and be ready to wrestle the next show. So
the mistakes made in that match at the finish with the false finish were primarily due to the referee having a last second hitch in doing it because, oh my God, it is the IWGP Strong Women's title match inaugural crowning. There are a lot of plans in play here. I don't blame this man for in the moment catching himself. But that's what happened, is he wasn't quite sure if this was the right play, and this is how they wanted to go forward. And then Mercedes called it in the ring, said this is how it needs to go. And lo and behold, Willow Nightengale, my first prediction of the IWGP Strong Women's Champion. But Mercedes, I think the summer's over for her.
Yeah, it looks like it probably is. And I think Brad here has it right. Mercedes changing the finish and she knew something was wrong, putting Willow over, throws all the haters' conspiracy theories of her only thinking about herself out the window. Absolutely right. This is a very professional thing to do. She absolutely could have just gone with a submission type of thing, and they could have faked their way through it. But she knew she would just have to vacate the thing. And it was a smart and professional play by her to go ahead and put Willow over and improvise something in the ring. And then, like you said, Willow handled it very well, considering she wasn't expecting to walk out with that belt.
100%.
And came up with something today. So it came up with something at the end of that show to say and then to play it like she meant to win it. So I thought both women did a hell of a good job, whatever it is. And like I said, we don't know yet, and it's possible they don't know the extent of everything yet, although I imagine she's seen a doctor or two by now. But we hope that Mercedes is back full health very quickly. In the meantime, Willow Nightengale, who has, despite some booking where she went through stretches where she didn't very often. It's changed up a little bit, but Willow Nightengale pretty damn over. So if
we should talk about that later on in the Resurgence review, but there were a couple other injuries too that we should
yes, and we're gonna get to all that. There's some real possibilities here. There's some interesting things going on. So we had that. And we also had news that Mark Davis, one half of Aussie Open, the IWGP World Tag Team Champions and the Strong Tag Team Champions, has a torn meniscus and had to undergo surgery to repair it. Now, New Japan has their rule that they have held fast with, which is if you are unable to make a announced title defense, that you are stripped of the title. They do this even with travel issues. We saw it with Jon Moxley with the Typhoons in Japan one time. He couldn't get there to defend the U.S. title. It was taken from him. And that was just because he was going to miss one date, not because of injury. He was just, but Davis is out for a little while. The only good news, if there is good news, is that it is a scope. They could do it with a scope, arthroscopic surgery, which really reduces the recovery time. And modern medicine on that is improved and improved. So he's not going to be out for too long, but he's going to be out for Dominion. And that means that the three-way title match we were going to have between Aussie Open challengers Bishamon and House of Torture, Evil and Yujiro Takahashi, is now going to be a match between Bishamon and House of Torture only, with the winners crowned the new IWGP Tag Team Champions. To me, Jeremy, this feels like just a bump in the road. I think whoever wins this match are only going to hold on long enough for Aussie Open to come back, challenge, and take them back. That's just my initial thought on that. I don't think those belts were going anywhere anyway, and I think they're probably going to put them back on Mark and Kyle as soon as they can.
I had dreams, my friend. I had dreams of Aussie Open Tag Team 2023. And I believe that will still be the case.
Could still happen.
Still be the testify, my friend, Aussie Open Tag Team 2023. However, the real tragedy is I believed that all the tea leaves were heading towards FTR and Aussie Open at Forbidden Door 2. And it does not seem like that is going to happen now. And there were a handful of matches I had in my mind down the line that were really going to cement this team as something for the future. And like you said, it's a bump in the road. The timing was just shit, frankly. Like just absolute shit. This one gets me way more than Mercedes Mone, because Mone was already established and they were on their ascent, and the momentum just stopping. Sometimes it's hard to get that momentum going again. And I don't think that's going to be the case, but I didn't want to be in the scenario where it was a possibility. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I feel really strongly that Ghetto agrees with your assessment of Aussie Open, that this is a tag team that is the future of that division. So as long as Davis is able to come back healthy and strong, I feel like they're going to be back on top of their perch as soon as they're able to. So, but I don't have inside information. Just the way I feel like the way Gato has been booking these guys, and I think they were going to win that match personally.
What if we just put all the belts back on them at All In and went?
Yeah, I mean, whenever he's able to come back, they're a great team. But like you said, man, the curse of the Forbidden Door. Everybody gets hurt going up to it, and our viewers are feeling the same way. Brad mentioned the whole for the love of all things holy, don't put the belts on House of Torture. Colin's saying House of Torture involved. I hate that idea. Yeah, no one wants to see House of Torture. Knowing that Davis and Fletcher aren't going to be out very long makes me very nervous that House of Torture is going to get these things, just so that they can put them back on it later.
But for the victorious ass beating at the very end,
I think we might have to stomach it for a little while, perhaps. They've gone with Bishamon a couple of times.
A lot of events going on between now and then, but I think given the campaign that Bishamon had as World Tag League Champion, it makes more sense to spotlight them going into Forbidden Door 2 than otherwise, even though the heat trolling would be pretty immense for House of Torture. How's the torture? Heat trolling. How's the heat trolling?
Oh man. So here we go. So what else now? The scariest one to me, actually, considering what the injury was. Broken ankles, nasty. No one wants to have their knee scoped. A cervical vertebra injury on Taiji Ishimori at that Korakuen Hall show in his match with Hiromu Takahashi, which is very sad for a bunch of one. They were having a hell of a good match.
They were having a great match. Hiromu
Taiji Ishimori's been wonderful in this tournament. Everyone's been wonderful in this tournament, right? That isn't named show, and he's booked that way. That's not show's fault. He's a talented guy. He's being booked to be a schmuck. The point I'm trying to make here is, though, any cervical injury is pretty damn scary, and the fact that it happened there, I saw it happen with the Poison Rana. And I didn't like the way he landed and the way he immediately grabbed his shoulder. I thought it was a shoulder because the way where he grabbed here, and I guess I was kind of hoping it was the shoulder, but it turns out he was grabbing the neck here more than he was grabbing the shoulder. No information on how long he's going to be. Again, that's another one that might take a while to figure out.
I was happy to see there was a lot of mobility despite the match being ended, which is a good sign, and they did not seem to exacerbate it more. So I'm taking all of that away as positives, even though anytime you have a cervical or spinal injury in the ring, you need to be very concerned going forward.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, the doctor got right in there, and it does make you a little bit nervous that he continued on for a little while, but I'm sure he probably felt that something was wrong, but wasn't sure how much, because he ended up doing a couple of lariats. There was a power bomb in there that I'm sure he wishes he had not gone up for. And then, then finally he just stayed down and like, okay, this is not good at all. And I don't know whether he went numb or we don't know. We don't have any information. But and there's a good point here. Brad mentions here that Hiromu looked pretty shook when the match was called. He did, didn't he? And it's one of those things that if anyone knows neck injuries, it's Hiromu Takahashi. Broke his against Dragon Lee in that match.
I remember being there for that.
You were in the building. And then, just to watch that, and he had to be having a little bit of a flashback right there. But yeah, you could see the character of Hiromu Takahashi kind of drain away, and you saw the man that knows Taiji Ishimori personally and not just in front of the cameras and things, just like, oh crap, is he okay? And you could really see that there was real concern. And all we can do is just hope that it's not it's not serious, and it's something he can recover from fairly quickly. But he's one of the most talented guys in the business, and whether one of the most
underrated guys in the business.
Even if he were the least talented guy in the business, I hope he recovers as fast as humanly possible, because nobody wants to see a guy have a neck injury like that. I don't think it affected the booking. I think Hiromu was going to win that match, so I don't think it threw anything off for what we were going to see. But
even the TJP, it was almost a lame duck match going into the next one. Yeah. Might have set up a match in the future, but nothing consequential. Yeah. But best wishes, Taiji Ishimori. We may not see him for a while.
Yeah, and then you were mentioning the other big one, Will Ospreay, who defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi, Resurgence. And I promise we are going to run down Resurgence here in a little bit in more detail.
But there were a lot of injuries.
There were a lot of injuries, and it's in all of wrestling too. We're in one of those weird periods, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. Just sometimes you get a rash of injuries, and WWE has seen some serious ones, and there've been a lot. But Will Ospreay, Jeremy, tell us what you know about that. And it looks like his shoulder wasn't quite as back and ready to go as everyone, including Will, was hoping.
I'm pretty sure he was always going to be operating in a little bit of pain. And even if he wasn't 100%, he was good enough to go and cleared to wrestle. Doesn't mean 100% healthy. And by the time that match was over, he was pulling on his shoulder and his arm something fierce, just trying to get it to feel right. And sometimes when you have like that little bone socket and it just doesn't feel right, you are just trying to get it better. You may not lose any loss of like range of motion, strength. You may, but the inability to like seamlessly move your arm the way that you are normally is a big hindrance in this. And when he got out of that ring, boy, he looked like he was hurting. And that was one of those, I hope you're okay, don't make it worse. Like, it's not worth it. We're all okay if you can't deliver on a date. Kenny was out for 18 months and he came back and he's doing fine. Will, you'll be okay either way, but definitely concerning.
Look how long Kenta's career was derailed by shoulder problems too. And all of these are different circumstances, and all of them are different injuries. But it is nerve-wracking to see. And the issue with Will is he's on the verge of one of the biggest matches of his life with this story. So, they had that incredible match with Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom, building to the rematch. It's so crucial to his career, and for what he wants to do and how he wants to present the Will Ospreay character in professional wrestling, and after that, the way that Kenny Omega match was worked, which was specifically to hold back some things, tell an incredible story, one of the best stories we've seen, but all of it to lead to another match that hasn't happened yet. And to have it derailed by a shoulder injury, that he is going to, if you pardon the pun, will his way into this thing, because he knows it's either going to be at Forbidden Door, which would be a monster match, could possibly, we don't know, maybe be at Wembley, which would be even bigger. I mean, Will wants this so bad that I hope it doesn't get in the way of good sense, because shoulder.
But he wants it bad, but G1 is coming too, and I think if we're reading the room here, he's going to have a really important role in the G1, and I hate to say it, but that takes priority over all the other matches.
Let's take a look at some of the comments here, because we have some good ones. Brad mentions, we were talking about in the Discord during the show, Will looked like he took off a lot of bulk since the injury, and it might be best for him in the long run. That's it. He did get a lot more muscular there when he moved up to heavyweight, and perhaps that will lessen a little bit of the burden on the joints. Flaming Shark with us. Good to see Shark back. We haven't seen him in a couple of weeks in the comment section. And it looks like Will's pushing himself for the second Omega match. Yeah. I just hope he knows his body well enough not to over push himself. Well said.
I genuinely love that the reaction of us and our viewers is the concern for Will's health, rather than the demand that he deliver on a match than when we want to see it. That's important to me.
I've always felt that we had very smart viewers. It's always been one of my favorite things about doing this show is the interaction here. And we're seeing good. Yeah. So let's talk about this. We're going to, of course, put this up. I got to do some house cleaning here as a podcast, and audio only. The audio version of this will go up as a podcast wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe, rate, leave a comment, that type of thing. 5 stars are always helpful. And all that stuff. It's absolutely true. It helps with the algorithm, helps people find the show. And we're grateful for anyone who watches here on YouTube or listens on the podcast, whatever podcast platform you use. We're very, very grateful that you guys are with us. So,
and I will quickly do the read for the Patreon. We have a Patreon, $5 a month. Within that, you get shows like the 5-Star Joshi, the Boom, the Dynamite Show, the Mike and JD Show, the Fight Gabe Flagship Show. These are all shows hosted by smart and capable people. The Boom, James McDaniel and Kevin Ely cover AEW, as well as the Dynamite Show, which is a deconstruction of AEW Dynamite on Wednesday nights by Paul Fontaine and Jeff Hawkins. The Mike and JD Show cover all the major news in wrestling at the end of the week with Mike Gilbert and JD Oliva. We have Power Bombshells, Mel Gray and Sam Shipman on Sunday morning covering all the news that you can cover in indie wrestling, New Japan, Impact, AEW, and they will also be your go-to for pre-shows on Sundays. Let's see if I've forgotten anybody. Of course, the 5-Star Joshi Show, Scott Edwards. He is a frequent guest, as well as Stephen Conway is a frequent guest of his on that show, covering all things Joshi, sometimes New Japan, sometimes domestic stateside women's wrestling. He is a man of many talents. You should check him out. How could I forget the Wrap? The Wrap with Keela Cash and Scott Young. We are frequent members of their guest hosting. They cover WWE weekly on Sundays, drop on Mondays, and I believe we've covered everything. Stephen Conway, let's move on.
Well, let's do it. So, Resurgence. Now, this was a hell of a show, wasn't it, Jeremy? I mean, really. I mean, considering there were some injuries right there, and I want to mention this. Flaming Shark, he said it was great. A friend of his went to their first wrestling show, and one of their friends seemed to become a fan from the show. So that's great.
It's a really cool venue, the Walter Reed Pyramid. Even though you can't get in, apparently, until 20 minutes before bell time. They only have one entrance, and the whole thing wraps around the pyramid. Like the line wraps around, and they didn't open the doors until 4, but the first match was at 4:20. So when you're watching the pre-show, there's nobody there. There's nobody there.
Huh. Well, that is odd. What is that? Do you know what that building's used for when it's not wrestling?
It's
I mean, like, what's the
Long
normal?
Beach. It's Cal State Long Beach
Cal State
Athletic
Long Beach
South
is right.
basketball court.
Oh, okay. And they do that with, well, I guess I guess it's not huge, but they only have the one, using the one entrance. Huh? Very odd.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Okay. So let's go over the women's tournament, because that ended up being the main event. That was the finals of that tournament was supposed to be the finals here. So we're going to go backwards, if you don't mind, Jeremy, if that's all right.
Not a problem. I'm going to figure
Let's
this
do
out.
the strong women's title tournament. How was this match going between Mercedes and Willow before the injury happened? Now, Willow had defeated Momokogo as we expected. Monet defeated Stephanie Vaquer. We're going to get to those semifinals after we talk about the finals. Willow, it was very well said by Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. He said Willow's job here was to have a good match and lose, put Mercedes over. She ends up getting the victory due to the circumstances. Was Willow doing her job before the injury happened? Was this a good match?
Okay, so what happened here is Willow and Mercedes both got in the ring, and the crowd took over. They cheered the shit out of both of them for almost 5 minutes. They wanted this match. They knew this match was happening based off of the cards. They were blown away by Momokogo and Stephanie Vaquer. Don't get me wrong. Those two made a name for themselves, but that's not what we're talking about right here. When we got to this match, the energy for this main event was palpable. And when they started locking up, it felt that way. The momentum was shifting. I felt like the audience knew how this was going, but they wanted to will Willow into a star in this night. So we got through this match, and this is Disney Princess Mercedes Mone, and you got Willow going through. Willow beat her ass hard. Like, with the point of this match being that Mercedes was going to win this, she was doing everything in her power to put these women over that she was in these matches with. So it was making Willow look like a powerhouse. So not only did Willow look like a powerhouse, she also won, which was, as we said, not the plan. But and we got to a point before this, where Sasha got on the top rope to perform Attempted Code Red, but she could not get her footing, and she jumped to the floor to regain. When she jumped to the floor, she was not able to get back up on her own 2 feet. And that's what we know. So when she got back into the ring, she was able to get on her feet for one leg, take the powerbomb finish, which was Willow. I think it was Willow's finish normally. And then the ref, hitched. Then they went for it again. He did not hitch that time. And even though the audience booed the finish, they did not boo Willow. They were just very confused and concerned and knew that they had seen something that wasn't necessarily according to plan. There was a lot in there that when you're watching it, you had to unpack. You watch Willow smiling, celebrating, but obviously trying to figure out what she needs to do next. She doesn't want to leave the ring, but she kind of wants to leave the ring, but you know that she can't. It was confusing, but what she was able to do was recover, compose herself, and then have a speech afterwards that basically cemented her into some type of new potential star. And so I got a question for you.
Okay.
Going to lead into probably one of the most obnoxious graphics I've ever made. So prepare yourself for this.
Okay. Holy Lord, what have you done?
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Canva. I appreciate all your ability.
What is that?
Will Tony Khan book Willow as a top star this summer?
Look at that thing. I can't take my eyes off that. For the folks on YouTube, for the folks on YouTube, you can see it. For the folks on the podcast, we have what? Let's see. We have
the Wall Street Pyramid. We have the Wall
pyramid.
Street Pyramid. That is the pyramid.
We have the shadow of Tony Khan looking over the referee, raising Willow's hand. Mercedes
looking over the horizon of his star and all that he sees.
Crazy.
We have
all right, but no, well, he should. And I'm hoping that he realizes he's been handed something very important here. Willow is over anyway.
He's been gifted something.
Yeah.
He's absolutely been gifted a champion in the making. The only question is, because it wasn't him that did it, is he going to Is he going to hesitate with moving forward with the star because he didn't make her, even though he should have for the last 6 to 9 months? Which is basically a criticism I have of him and the way he's been booking is he has been playing fast and loose with house money with people he should be making stars way earlier. And the audience spoke tonight when she was in that ring before everything went to shit. Before everything went to shit, they made it clear that they loved Willow Nightengale. And her being in the ring with Mercedes Mone was a big deal. So do you run with that? Do you go forward with that? Or do you say, oh, slow your roll. We're not going to go full bore with this because, it wasn't really the plan. And we got a lot of plans in place.
Well, I don't tear up all my plans for my women's division and just suddenly base it around Willow Nightengale. No, I mean, you do have a plan. You do have something you want to go into. But I think he would be crazy not to make the fact that this woman just defeated one of the top female stars and most famous female stars on planet Earth and just kind of downplay that. I think you play that up. And Willow, you can't beat her now on TV too much because she has a championship belt. Yeah.
You can't beat her at all.
Yeah. And well, I mean, you could like in tag matches or whatever, but they should do that judiciously as well. So I mean, go with it. I mean, just say, all right, she's just defeated Mercedes Mone and she can go on a run in AEW there and be successful. And you can even have a challenge for her at a challenger at Forbidden Door, one of the heels at AEW, to challenge her there and put that match on it. And if you wanted to, I think they would be crazy not to. I just think that this is a way to make her a bigger deal than she already was. And she's already a big deal. The crowd loves her. She has a very natural charisma that comes through. It seems very genuine. And the crowd connects to that in a way that you don't get very often. And
I think she's their new Kylie Ray.
Yeah. I mean, that could work out. So I hope they do. I think Tony's smart enough to.
Mega smiling babyface, happy. I hope so. There are promoters in this world that we know of that will spite this entire scenario and bury the star, Vince McMahon, because it wasn't their idea and not their plan. Yes.
Yeah, that is a flaming shark. Will Tony pull a Vince? Basically, is the question. No, I don't think. I think he's going to understand that this is something you're going to have. You get handed something like this, go with it. It doesn't. I don't think Tony feels like it always has to be his idea. Although I think he likes it when it is. But who doesn't, right? Yeah. So let's see. Now let's talk about how they got there. Willow defeated Momo Kogo, and I thought Momo did well in this. I think she's. I think Momo's pretty good. What's interesting is she's one of the least protected members of her faction, but she's in there with Mayu Iwatani, and she's with stars. And it's Mayu Iwatani. You got Hazuki, even geez, I mean, all of the stars that I'm trying to think of. There's been some movement around there, but Kaguma is in there with stars. So Momo sometimes is the one that has to eat the fall in a 6-person tag match or something like that. But one of my favorite things that they have done, I'm really happy about this. When they have brought women from stars over, they have brought different people. We're not seeing the same faces all the time. We've seen Azumi, we've seen Husky, we've seen Starlight, we've seen Natsupoi and Tam Nakano, of course.
It's been a real revolving door.
It has. And what it's doing is it's introducing these women, a bunch of them. It's not just a couple. They're starting to see that. And when they keep doing well, it just builds more credibility for Stardom because you just think, well, this is a new Stardom wrestler coming in. Well, the other 6 have been pretty damn good. Why not this one? And I thought it was a good performance for her. I think it could help her. And what helps is that Momo speaks a little bit of English, so that definitely is help as well. She was supposed to do English commentary on the last pay-per-view there, but got hurt, and that's when Mariah May stepped in, did a great job. So happy for Momo. I think it was another face to introduce, and if they bring her back, I think the crowd will realize that she's worth taking seriously.
She was a tiny wrestler, and she was wrestling the David and Goliath match with
it's the Willow. Same match. Riho does a match similar to that in AEW all the time.
I wanted to say it. I wasn't sure if just rapidly comparing it to Riho for frame reference. But yes, it was. If you've seen Riho versus Nyla Rose, it was essentially the same match.
So that one, I saw that one live here in it was in Cedar Park, Texas, not technically Austin. Then. So and then Mercedes Mone defeated Stephanie Vaquero. How did you think Stephanie did?
She looked great, man. She looked, holy moly, she has a look already. And sometimes when you don't know a wrestler, they come out with a look and then there's nothing in the ring to back it up. That is not the case of what happened here. Stephanie Vaquer was ready, polished, fantastic. She is someone that has been put on the radar of American wrestling fans. There was a niche group of people that probably knew exactly who she was. I was not one of them. And she has a bright future. As the Flaming Shark says, Stephanie in particular was impressive, but it's for later. This was a break the wall down level of entrance into
Nice.
American wrestling. It was tremendous. If you look at these pictures, Mercedes, I don't know if she was selling or what, but she was particularly impressed with that match afterwards. She was like, "Oh, that was something."
Sometimes you just feel it, don't you? You're just like, oh, there's chemistry here. I like this. We can do this every night. So, yeah. And Brad also felt Momo did amazing. The audience got behind her big time. And if she ended up beating Willow, the fans would have actually been okay.
The entire tournament completely over-delivered. They had 4 women who, and we've talked about this in the past, when you do we did it for the IWGP Women's title, the chase for the title and how they carried the title in the inaugural run makes that belt. And so they really do have to keep Willow incredibly strong, because that belt is going back to Mercedes at some point. And I would particularly like the idea if somebody took the belt off of Willow with Dastardly Means before she got to Mercedes, so that Mercedes doesn't get the chance to beat her.
Okay. Well, let's see some more of the comments here. Flaming Shark, Mercedes just randomly popping up like Jericho used to and attacking someone, while hopefully TK and NJPW take advantage of this opportunity. Yeah. You could do that. I really think that they're going to put that strong title on her.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got an obvious thing going here. Again, you talk about things being handed to you. Something was just handed to Tony Khan. Well, something was just handed to New Japan, which is when Mercedes comes back. It's not going to be something like, you injured my ankle, but rather something like, there's a mental block. I have to conquer this mountain now. Last time I faced you, I was out for a couple of months. So now I've got to come out and I've got to beat you. Like, I have to conquer this this mountain that's been put in front of me.
Bad news scenario. Bad news, Mercedes is out for a while. Won't be main eventing any shows. Good news, she'll be back and she'll be main eventing those shows when she does.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're probably going to go with that. And let's see. Brad has mentioned, I'm interested to see if Rossi, he's talking about Rossi Ogawa, who's the owner, not owner anymore, Bushiroad's the owner, but the booker of Stardom, if he saw how great Momo got over and if he starts taking her more seriously. I'll be interested to see that too. I don't think she was sent there by accident. So I feel like there may be a plan for her coming up soon. I'd like to see that. She's talented. So well, let's get to the rest of this Resurgence card. My goodness, we're 33 minutes in. We got to
power through these.
Let's do this. Okay. Now, so we had Virus and we had opening matches. DKC defeated Bateman. We were going back to front, weren't we? Oh gosh.
Yeah, I had it ready for Ospreay. Let's do Ospreay. Will Ospreay defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi, as we figured, 16 minutes, 44 seconds. That sets up Ospreay to face Lance Archer, hopefully, at Dominion for the #1 contender spot, with the winner to get a shot at IWGP US champion Kenny Omega. So Ospreay versus Tanahashi. I mean, there's even when these guys are injured, there's not a whole lot that can go wrong, because these are two of the more intelligent workers in the business. How did you feel that this one went? So there was a lot of energy with this one too. In the beginning, Ospreay and Tanahashi both got on the ring ropes, and Ospreay did a drum set while Tanahashi did the air guitar, and then they proceeded to have a great match. Tanahashi, good knee night. We were feeling really good about it.
Thank God for cortisone.
Absolutely. They hit all the moves. Will decimated him with a shining the hidden blade from the second rope, from off the ring rope, which might have been what hurt him if you really think about it. But it was pretty much an academic match. They didn't want to do too much because Mercedes was in the main event, but you're still getting you were still getting Tanahashi and Ospreay. And like we talked about earlier, he didn't come out of this match 100%. He didn't go into the match 100%. And we just kind of cross our fingers that he's going to be able to move forward with it.
So Colin says, Lance is actually being used. A shocker. Yeah, I think he probably people forgot his number. I'm not sure. He's like, yeah, I haven't changed my phone, guys. AEW, New Japan, anybody. It's like, I'm still right here. He's a Texan guy, he's a Texas guy, so I do like him. But
match of the night.
There it is, right there. We had Jon Moxley, Shota Umino, and Wheeler Yuta defeating the Chaos team of Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, and the Rocky Romero. And 19 minutes, 37 seconds. So they went fairly long for something that's not a semi-main or a main event. But when you got that kind of talent in the ring, why not? To me, Jeremy, this sets up a match at Dominion with the never open weight 6-man tag team champions. I feel like Rocky's going to be moved out. Tanahashi, since he's not in the tournament anymore, can be moved in. Now you have the obvious storyline of, hey, we're going for the belts now. Do you feel like it's going to be Yuta? But before we get to all that, tell us about this match. You said it's your favorite.
This was a mean guy match. Every one of these guys did not like each other, except for Rocky, where it's just kind of like, what did I get myself into kind of thing.
It's like when your friends get into a bar brawl and think, well, I should probably hit somebody, but I don't know why.
I guess I'm getting a fight.
Yeah.
And I had a discussion with Brad in there where I thought Wheeler Yuta might potentially take the loss going into Dominion, since the Dominion match is already set and they might need to strengthen that side as part of the storyline. But Brad called it. Rocky Romero's there to eat the pin, and probably exactly what it should have been. This was all set. This was all set up. And while we are looking at Dominion, I feel like this is setting up a lot more down the line. So you can see the sassiness between Ishii and Yuta. Perfect little asshole Wheeler Yuta in this match. He didn't do nearly as much as the other two guys, but celebrated like he won a championship. But when this thing was over, running around the ring with his arms in the air, celebrating. Then you got this.
He's another one that, and just real quickly on Wheeler Yuta, he's another one that this heel turn from Blackpool Combat Club has brought out a nice side of him. Yes. Brought out some personality. It's been healthy for him. Anyway, and here we go. The picture on the screen, Jon Moxley doing the double flip off to Kazuchika Okada while Okada does the Rainmaker pose. I mean, what kind of iconography could you possibly want more than this?
So really interesting. This was not the angle that we saw it from the TV. When we were watching the TV, it was the traditional Rainmaker pose with Jon Moxley walking up with his traditional Jon Moxley huff and getting up in his face and giving him the flip off. They then have the sequence, and this is pretty much the only sequence that they have in the entire match, where they throw each other into the ropes, and I think Okada gives him a drop kick and gives him the spinning Rainmaker. Moxley sells it like The Rock took Stone Cold Stunner. Went up and down, out of the ring, took the flop, and
I always hated the way Rock sold the Stunner. I always thought it looked stupid.
And I will tell you, I know we are getting to Dominion. I know that we are getting to a 6-man match for the never open weight titles.
Sure.
But you know what else I think we're getting to? I need you to prepare yourself for this, Steven.
All right, here we go. Holy Christ. Look at that thing. Oh, my God. We got another graphic here that apparently we've hit some sort of nebula or a vortex in space.
It's the Forbidden Door, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
It's the eye of the Forbidden Door.
Why is the Forbidden Door in some sort of weird dimension? So that the Moxley and Okada are apparently flying through space, through the Forbidden Door, into an alternative universe where they get to wrestle each other.
2023, man. Portals are all the rage. Portals are all the rage.
Goodness. My goodness. We're going to have to get you a tranquilizer when you use these things.
I just love to get the eyes on it, buddy. I just love to get the eyes. So I have been beating this drum for a while, and I think we're getting closer and closer to it. I am willing to stake 2 hamburgers that Jon Moxley and Kazuchika Okada will be a co-main event of Forbidden Door 2.
I'm not going to complain about that match if it happens.
So if we have Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega and Moxley and Okada as the main event of Forbidden Door 2, you can have my money. Doesn't matter what the rest of the card is.
I can be curious to see that, especially with the current Moxley iteration. You know, we saw kind of a babyface version of Moxley when he was in the G1. I don't remember off the top of my head. I have to look it up if he ever wrestled Okada there, or if they were in the same block and they didn't wrestle each other. Been a while. Either way, this is a different Jon Moxley working style than we got last time out. He's always been kind of a brawler, but this more vicious Blackpool Combat Club version of it, I think, would be a nice contrast to the arrogance of greatness that Okada presents. A nice clash and two very smart workers that can put something interesting together.
Did you see the promo after the 6-man match at Resurgence that Jon Moxley cut?
Let's hear about it.
He had a promo where he talked about the 60-minute time limit matches that Okada had, and he said that was cool and whatever, but he thought he could beat Okada in 11 minutes.
That's oddly specific.
He looked at it and he thought about the way that Okada works, and he said people call him one of the greatest of all time, but he's pretty good. Okada's pretty good, but he's seen weaknesses in his game, and he asked Wheeler and he asked Shota what they thought, and they kind of agreed with him that he could beat him. And then he's like, no, actually, I could beat Kazuchika Okada in 8 minutes.
All right. Well,
so this is the build. It is happening. These two do not like each other. We got Mean Guy Okada. He has been coming around since February. Since the Kaito Kiyomiya match, we got Mean Guy Okada, and we got Mean Guy Moxley. And these mean guys are going to fight each other, and I am here for it. You can have Omega versus Ospreay. I want to see this match more, I think.
All right, up next, we got to get moving on this. So we have Kenta regained the strong open weight title, defeating Hikuleo. And but before the match, we got a video saying that Eddie Kingston wants next. So that was a bit of a surprise for me anyway, saying that Eddie was once next there. Hikuleo, I think that the title win in the first place was a bit of a bouquet of flowers sent to the fans because they knew what they were about to do to Tama Tonga and beat him to death with David Finlay. So they were at least going to give Jado and that group a little bit of love by having Hikuleo upset Kenta in their title match, figuring maybe you just can switch it back here. So while Hikuleo did fine in that match, I feel like you mentioned it too. Kenta as the gatekeeper is a good role for him. And of the two matches, I think I would rather see Eddie Kingston and Kenta than Eddie Kingston and Hikuleo at this stage of Hikuleo's career. That might not be the case in 4 years or wherever as Hikuleo continues to develop, because I do think he has potential. But I think I'd rather see Eddie and Kenta. That could be very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be hanging their hats on this summer. A lot of people want to see Eddie back and healthy. This was a one-spot shot in this match. They led all the way up to the rafters, and they set up a table earlier next to the rafters. They fought up there, as you can see. That was pretty high up. I'd say like 15 feet. Kenta flipped him over onto the table in the back, crawled to the ring, won by count out. I don't know how I feel about this match. I just kind of want to move on.
Well, I think Brad might have hit it right on the head as far as the misapplication of a spot here. I thought it was weird to do a match with a big table bump not long after a garbage match.
That might have been it.
That was much better. Yeah, it's hard to wow the crowd after they just saw
It was like he was pushed up and over, and it felt like slow motion watching Hikuleo fall onto the table. It was a pretty amazing visual, I have to admit. But it was a one spot to the match that had anything to do with anything.
Well, it followed up a street fight between Juice Robinson and Fred Rosser. And this one went 23 minutes and 10 seconds, which is a long time to watch a street fight. However, it did have a twist and a turn where Juice Robinson's better half, that being Tony Storm, interfered as well and got involved with a very bloody Juice and Fred there. And they've been teasing her involvement all the way through. I think Fred's been cutting some promos on Tony as well as on Juice here, trying to get under Juice's skin. Ended up backfiring. Juice ended up defeating Fred Rosser. Again, doesn't quite feel like we might be 100% done with this feud yet, but Who knows? But Juice Robinson wins the street fight.
I told you back in February and in April that Fred Rosser was the heel in this feud. The way that he was going after Tony, and the audience agreed with me when he planted a kiss on Tony Storm against her will, and both Ian Riccaboni buried him for it. The audience buried him for it, and we had the best Fred Rosser match that I've seen in a long time, and it kind of got overshadowed by a really stupid old Southern wrestling trope that they probably shouldn't have gone with.
Any chance that it's the beginning of a heel turn for him, or
I hope so.
Or was it a miscalculation?
I think it was a miscalculation. I think he needs to go heel with the direction he's been going. It was a fantastic match, and it was among as good a street fight that Juice had with Ren and Narita back in October, and this one. Juice has phenomenal street fights in New Japan, even though he's spinning his wheels over in AEW. But they finally got this match going. They made a veiled mention of no more delays, no more interruptions as to why this match can't happen on a certain show when Rosser cut his promo. So definitely some hits of Bullet Club Gold and Bullet Club Black teases in between.
The also props, by the way, to Tony Storm for remembering to wear a white T-shirt when she's going to get her husband's blood all over it. That's pretty smart stuff right there. You got to do that.
Wait a minute. What if Fred Rosser joined Bullet Club?
Oh, stop it! I don't know. How many do they need? There's already 30 people.
I don't know. You could have Bullet Club versus Bullet Club at Forbidden Door.
Oh, jeez. Now we're turning them into the NWO. We're gonna bring back Vincent. Let's see. So what else here? We had a earlier match, tag team match, Virus and Barbaro Cavernario, a CMLL team, defeating the Mighty Don't Kneel, that being Zack Sabre Jr. and Bad Dude Tito. That one went about 15 minutes. Don't have a ton of time to talk about that one, but
Bad Dude and Cavernario beat each other's ass, and when Virus and Cavernario won, I was shocked. It is worth going out of your way to see, but it was an opening match, and 15 minutes went pretty long.
Telling you, Barbaro Cavernario is really good. I mean, absolutely. I know that the Fred Flintstone gimmick's a little goofy, and when he does the worm kind of, it's a little strange and stuff like that. But I see him in CML all the time. This guy's really talented. Also, a little note about it is he used to miss the Monday shows or Tuesday shows that CMLL did every week because he would travel back to his hometown and attend college classes while he was main eventing for CMLL. So there you go. A little note about Barbaro that I know that not too many people do. So we also saw Alex Coughlin getting a win over Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels, 9 minutes, 26 seconds there. And the DKC got a victory over Bateman in 8 minutes and 23 seconds that probably felt a lot longer.
Yes, they were both good matches. The Coughlin match was every Coughlin match that you've seen. Daniels is looking smaller and smaller as he's getting older. I don't know how much more ring time he's going to have left. And the DKC and Bateman was an opening match that nobody in their arena was there to watch.
Well, yeah, there were a couple of. Remember when WWE was doing 2-hour-long pregame shows and they would do the first match with nobody in the arena?
Yeah.
I always felt bad for those guys. And you got to put the show on for the people on TV, but man, it's difficult to do in front of empty seats. Would not be upset if Brad, by the way, would not be upset if Tony moved from the Outcast to BC Gold. Yeah, I mean, the Outcast is eventually going to wear out. I mean, they've been doing it for a few months. Changes will happen there. And can we get a 60-minute exhibition between Virus and ZSJ, please?
Only if Jon Moxley is okay with it.
There you have it. Virus, another CMLL star there. Okay, so that was Resurgence. And you can see these matches on New Japan World. NJPW World is part of the Strong show that they're going to cut this up into pieces. And
I don't know. They might have to because the pay-per-view window for this ends in July. So they are not going to make it available until they have cut it all up into pieces.
Well, there you go.
You got to pay for it if you want to watch it in whole.
Keep an eye on it. But yeah, they'll probably divide it up there and have it on there eventually. So what else we got here? So I guess
through the super best of Super Juniors.
So we have way too many shows. There have been wonderful shows every day now, but way too many. So we're going to just kind of talk about how the tournament progressed and then go over some matches that we feel that if you haven't had a chance to, you should go out of your way to see. But you can look up online who won, who lost, but we're going to talk about how the storylines developed more than we're going to do a recap like we just did with Resurgence. There's 45 matches so far with the last day.
Even if we spent 1 minute tops on all of them, we still might not finish in 90 minutes. So let's go for it.
Okay, so on the 17th, that was last Wednesday at the Sendai Sun Plaza in front of 1,075 people. They had a card there. I wanted to mention that something that I thought was very good here. There was a Robbie Eagles Yoshinobu Kanemaru match that I really enjoyed, and of course, both of those guys work submissions. So you're talking Kanemaru with the figure 4, Robbie Eagles with the Ron Miller special. I just thought this was fabulous. They both know a lot of ways to get in and out of those holds. It was a really good 10-minute cat and mouse between those two. And of course, there were the main event that night was brilliant. Yo and El Desperado, a fantastic 20-minute match there. And then that same night, I'm sorry to make you click through all these graphics so quickly. The other one I wanted to mention very quickly was a Lucha Libre dive fest with Mike Bailey and Titan on that show in Sendai. So much fun between those two.
That was worth going out of your way for.
Yeah, those are my 3 favorites from this one. But to me, Jeremy, this might be the best of the Super Juniors tournament I have seen in many a year. I hesitate.
Maybe like 5 years.
Longer than that, I think.
The best ones, the recency bias, like I can't go back any further because you just kind of like that all kind of muddies together for me. But in the last 5 years, I am putting this above all the others. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out one that I like better than this before you get back to the very first ones. Like Super Juniors 5 is kind of a legendary one because Benoit was in it. El Samurai, and Benoit was a great worker. What can you say? Benoit, El Samurai, Eddie Guerrero, Black Tiger, Jushin Thunder Liger, Great Sasuke, and all that stuff. We're talking like that level match in and match out. This tournament's been brilliant. I've had so much fun watching this.
Yeah, there's almost a sense of like I can't keep up with what I thought was the best match because the quality and caliber has been so high across the level that when you come across a match that you didn't like, you can't say it was bad. You just didn't like it, and there were very few matches that I didn't like, but I don't think were any matches I can't say weren't good.
So after Sendai, we had a couple of developments going. At that point, Mike Bailey, Lio Rush, and Taiji Ishimori each had 8 points, with Hiromu Takahashi, who lost 2 of his first 3, importantly, to Bailey and to, what was it, Ishimori, I believe, right? No, excuse me, not Ishimori. It was Bailey and Lio Rush. He had lost 2 of his first 3 there. So he had tiebreaker issues, but Hiromu, TJP, and Titan were back at 6. So that's where it looked in the A block. In the B block, Robbie Eagles had gotten off to a hot start with 8. And then you had a log jam at 6 that involved Master Wato, Yo, Desperado, and Clark Connors at 6 points. That was where we were there, which is interesting to see where things turned out. From there, they went to Iwate Prefecture for a show on the 18th. And let's see, we had some really good stuff in this one, too. Sho defeated Taiji Ishimori in a match between 2 Bullet Club members there that would have ended up mattering in the standings, perhaps. But as it turns out, didn't. I made a note, though, at the time that I thought that one might have mattered. Titan defeated Lio Rush in a fabulous match there. Lio had a bit of a hiccup midweek where he lost 2 out of 3. That ended up really costing him at the end. But this match against Titan was one of those losses, and it was excellent. Fantastic speed, tumbling, crisp kick sequences, very tight, very well worked.
I love the Titan and Lio match.
Oh, yeah. And there it was. And Yo's streak began heating up. Yo had a bad start, but a strong ending. It's not exactly the same as the 0-4 and then 5-0 runs he had 2 years ago, but he started to heat up, beating Franceso Akira in only a minute 34 in a flash pin there. But it was a little bit of a sign that Yo was picking up steam, which is not something we had necessarily on our bingo card. And Master Wato beat Robbie Eagles in the main event. I love the finishing sequence of that one with those guys coming in and out of the Ron Miller, working into the high angle German. So couple of ones there, highlights to look out for from Iwate.
The Hiromu and Kushida match was a fever dream. I did not expect anything of what I saw of that, including, I believe, Kushida losing by countout at the very end of that match. They went out into a field and had a match. Part of their match was out into a field, and the audience did not follow. It was a complete WTF moment. I was totally on board with it, and I was highly, highly amused. And there have been plenty of Kushida Hiromu matches in the past, and when I thought that they would really get their hands on each other in this one, this is not what I expected. But it was still great.
There were a couple of matches this week that left the building, and one of them was Roderick Strong, Chris Jericho, and the other one was this one. And then you can't get too different than that. Those two matches right there. There
was one other that left the actual match area and went into a lobby this morning.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, that is true. That was, but I was looking at that. There's ones that actually left the entire building right there. They're very different from one another.
Count anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. Yeah, and everyone's banned from the building, which was clever to have Adam Cole outside, not in the building, right? Let's see. Hiromu Takahashi also beat TJP in a fabulous match.
Yes.
In that one. And Brad was right. I wanted to mention this, read this for the people that are listening on the podcast. We had one subpar day 2. That probably would have been the worst one, but even that day was. He said everything else has been absolutely brilliant, and even day 2 wasn't bad, just not the best. I mean, something has to be the worst show on the whole thing. Something has to get that dubious spot. But that show wasn't bad at all, and all of the rest of them had just fabulous stuff. You could see that they were pushing each other. The kinesiology tape was piling up by the end of this one. It was a lot of matches, and I know they worked short matches in the undercard because they had to get 10 of them done a night. But even so, the effort put in, these guys were doing a lot in a short frame of time, and they were beat up and hurting, but you could tell that no one wanted to be the anchor dragging the thing down. Everyone pushed each other, and everyone showed up. I love this tournament.
Kinesiology tape and trainer's tape. A lot of trainer's tape started getting used.
Yeah, especially by Show, apparently. He likes to tie people up in the back before his matches. So
it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it played out.
Mostly poorly, though.
Yeah, I didn't work out great for him.
No, Corrick and Hall on the 21st. Good Lord.
We got the 19th still.
We have the 19th still? Did I skip that one?
We got 17th,
the 19th and Aomori. Thank God you're here.
Oh, good.
The story also, I wanted to mention that the crowd really wanted a Ryuske Taguchi win over Doki here in Aomori. They really got the crowd into it, but that was building throughout the time that you could sense the crowds really wanted to see Taguchi get rewarded for not screwing around, and they were supportive of him not doing the clowning, and they almost got there. And I also thought Lio Rush defeated Kushida there in Aomori, and it occurs to me that they might have abandoned Kushida as a singles contender for now.
I believe they have.
He was the guy that was going to challenge Ishimori before he got the hand, foot, and mouth disease, which is just crummy luck. And he could never really get that title shot that they had been building to. And now he's the junior tag team champion with Kevin Knight, and that team's terrific. So, I mean, it's not like but it does look like they've never minded the whole idea of him being a contender for the singles championship, because he obviously had a terrible record in this tournament, didn't need it. He's got other things to do in the junior heavyweight tag division. He's fine. But it does look like Kushida is not going to be challenging for that belt anytime.
No, my sneaky suspicion is that they wanted them to look a little bit weak going into singles, so that when they get challenged a number of times by teams going forward for those junior tag titles, they clear out all the challengers and look strong. But setting up some narratives down the line, and that's fine.
So at the end of Aomori's show, Mike Bailey, Hiromu Takahashi, Taiji Ishimori, and Lio Rush all had 10 points. Titan stalking behind, always 2 back, just kind of sitting right there, but picking up very important key wins over people. He beat Lio Rush, for instance. That would end up being very, very significant. So he was a stalking horse right there, never too far back. And TJP had something to do with it too at 8. And the B block, 4 guys were at 10. Eagles won again, so he joined Wato, Yo, and El Desperado at 10. Franceso Akira, the stalking horse, at 8. All these people are going to have a lot to do with the finish here. But we also noticed that Clark Connors began to drop off, began losing his matches down there. And, but again, this tournament's more about him establishing his heel character than him winning.
I loved the gimmick while it happened. I wanted to root for Clark Connors. I did believe that he had a legitimate chance, but they decided to go in a different direction, and that was to make him like a head breaker that doesn't care about winning or losing, which is a choice. But he has a reputation coming out of this tournament that he did not have going in, and that is a net positive for me.
There's also the thought that I had that guys like Mike Bailey, guys like Lio Rush, and some of those contenders, like, you have to make hay with them now, because are you necessarily going to have them? And I think they
100%.
feel like they have Clark Connors for a few years. I think they feel comfortable that Clark is going to be a New Japan guy.
It's not his time yet, and that's totally okay.
So you can do it. So you can establish his character now, then build him up. Maybe next year he makes the run. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have to do it now. Whereas Bailey, you don't know if you're getting Bailey back. You don't know. You'd love to, of course. After his performance here, you'd love to keep Lio Rush. After these performances, there's going to be some companies in the United States that are probably going to pay these guys a lot of money to be on their shows. So, you make hay while you can. And then I think with Connors, they might feel fairly confident that they can do his push later. Not everybody, and it can't be his time all the time.
He is the one of those young lions in that class that has the most potential and is living it out right now. So good on him. If he's not shot to the moon, that's okay.
Korakuen Hall on the 21st, I was anxious to get to this one because it was the largest post-pandemic crowd in that building.
So big. There's an energy to this show. For
New Japan, the second biggest overall. Himeka's retirement ceremony for Stardom actually did just a touch more. They put 1,436 in there, opened up the balconies, and you had people, some of the more vocal members of the crowd. That's always where the more vocal fans ended up, was up in those balconies and the rafters, the Statlers and the Waldorfs of the New Japan world. And you heard one of them up there tormenting Dan Maloney by doing the Robbie, 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 oi, oi, oi chants. Robbie had been begging for that in post-match comments all week, that he's hoping that someday the crowd would do it himself and he wouldn't have to lead it. And he got it at Korakuen Hall. Had to be a big moment for him, I'm sure. He was
talking about it, I think, on the next show too. He was pretty happy about it.
Maloney was a fabulous heel, by the way, playing to it. Excellent job on that one. And he's the one that I really feel like if he came back to New Japan or not, I don't know if he's going to be back. I think he did well, maybe not as well as some of the other first timers, but I like the heel presence. He does have a nasty character, a nasty side to his character that I think has a place. There isn't, I guess Clark Connor's doing something like that, but Maloney just doing the mean guy that likes to hurt people, not because he's pissed at the world, but he's just wired that way type of thing. It's a different kind of anger than Clark Connors has, but it does work. But it's a crowded field. I mean, it's hard to stand out when you got workers like this.
So Maloney is a guy, and I can't underline this enough. Being invited to the Best of the Super Juniors and being able to hang with those guys is amazing.
Yeah.
With that said, him being able to hang with them still underscored that he was a tier below most of those guys in a lot of ways. And he is going to need time to be molded and set in United Empire, given reps, feeling into the New Japan roster. That's not his fault, but he was put in the deep end of the pool, said swim. And, he made it to the edge of the pool, but it wasn't graceful. So he's got better days ahead for him. I definitely don't think he embarrassed himself, but of the 20 guys that were in the Best of the Super Juniors, he was number 20.
We have some split thoughts on him from the folks here watching. Brad Ryder thought that Maloney and Akira on today's show clicked well as a crazy tag team. It wasn't bad for, they had, of course, because only one block was in action today, the A block, the B blockers were in tags. And of course they put Maloney and Akira together because, TJP was actually in there, but he didn't have a match to wrestle because he was supposed to face Taiji Ishimori. That was a forfeit. They put him in another tag. So we did get to see Maloney and Akira as a tag, and they had a pretty good match with each other right there. Colin, not as much of a fan. He's not a fan of Maloney. He says he's boring. I think that's a little harsh. I think that with the right guy, like that whole thing with Robbie, and even with Akira, where it was that whole interfaction rivalry thing, I thought some things clicked for him. but I can't sit here and say that he's on a level with the others in this. I just can't. There's just
he needs to be incorporated into the New Japan roster with allies much more than just, hey, here's a new member of United Empire. He's in this tournament. Cheer, boo him, whatever. Like, you're just like, excuse me, what? Huh? What's the frame of reference here? And that's really...
Colin's also correct on one other thing. There is a woman in Tokyo, and I mean, there's 46 million people in Tokyo, so we'll never be able to find her again, perhaps, but she was in love with Lio Rush. She was yelling his name constantly, and he's right. He has clicked with at least one member of the audience. So there's a lot more than that, but I think Lio definitely has a big fan there. So, what were your favorites? I've been talking about my favorites. What were your favorites from Cork? And I'll give you mine.
I think this Lio Rush and TJP match was tremendous. Where this one, there we go.
Desperado and Franceso Akira.
This to me was a dismantling of a top guy, a former IWGP champion, and this set up to me a underline of like, this dude is challenging Hiromu to me. Like, I think with that kind of dominant teardown of another person. Some people called it heelish. Some people called it ruthless. I saw it as a guy who was putting an exclamation point on a tournament, and he saw the end game, and he wasn't holding back getting to the end.
So that was a very, very good one. And of course, that was the whole thing where he tortured Akira with the numero dos, and a cool version of the numero dos where he's actually holding his arms as well. It just looked rough to deal with. Thankfully, Akira is a pretty flexible
one of your
guy.
guys going into it. Despy was one of your picks to win it all. So tip of the cap, they're really going with it. And I should have seen it coming, because I talk about how they like to play musical chairs with those titles, and Desperado just lost those never open weight titles. Should have seen it coming.
There's a thing with Desperado. It really clicked for me when he had that match where he got his mask torn off in the finals of the Super Juniors with Hiromu. And I knew he was good, but that was when I thought, okay, this guy's actually great. And he's just blossomed ever since. He's been one of the best juniors in the world for a while, and I'm glad. But he's a logjam. He was right up there with Hiromu Takahashi. So, Hiromu is the new Liger. So it's a tough spot for him. But I feel like he's on a nice little run here. And this tournament, he's really stepped up. The match was terrific. Tortured him to the point that TJP even went to throw the towel in on behalf of his partner. Desperado caught the towel. And somehow that's not throwing in the towel. I don't know. It seems like you could have rung the bell right there. But what they wanted to do was have Akira snatch the towel out of Desperado's hand and throw it away to show with it. I'm not giving up. By God, I'm not giving up. This one got raves from the viewers too. It was killer. Brad says the whole story of the match, Despy knowing he was better and just toying with him was great. And Colin said, yeah, it was really good. Yeah, absolutely it was. And another one worth mentioning from that one, Bailey and Taguchi had a really great 10-minute match. And this is why I get frustrated with Ryuske Taguchi when he clowns around, because I know he's capable of stuff like this. He doesn't do the clowning because he can't wrestle. He does it because he doesn't want to anymore, I guess. But Taguchi using brains and experience to outfox Bailey, while Bailey used his speed and his strikes and everything. I loved it. And the crowd was very much into this one because they were in Cork and Hall. We're coming down to the end of the tournament, and it's one of those matches where Bailey needed those 2 points at the end, and sometimes Geto will snatch them away from somebody in these late tournament losses. Somebody who's a front runner and has been near the top, and then they just lose that one toward the end. So there was a very real possibility of an upset happening here. It didn't happen. Bailey did end up winning the match and extending Taguchi's winless streak at the time which went into the final day. But this was fantastic, and because that little precipice is there, you're always wondering if there's going to be the upset. There was real tension to this. It was fun.
Yeah. This was like the prelude to the finals, and the entire back half of this show was just set up to rev the engine, as it will, before we just go out the gate. It was a great setup, and getting into the 23rd, man, like those matches. We only had 4 because Ishimori and TJP didn't happen. But, so we have the the bracket here. Oh, real quick, and I'm sorry to interrupt with this. The 21st was my sister's birthday, and she is a listener of this show, so I wanted to wish her a happy birthday. Dina, cool. Thank you for listening, and I love you.
Thank you for listening. Yeah, happy birthday to you. Brad mentioned, by the way, Taguchi faking being hurt against the post, baiting Mike Bailey into kicking the post. Great spot. Moment. Really was. You don't see it done well that often. You know, usually like, well, the guy definitely saw that he isn't hurt, and he's got to pretend like he didn't. I think Taguchi did it in a way where you could forgive Bailey for not realizing it. I think he did it that quick. Again, this is why. Like, why doesn't he just wrestle like this more? I'm not even asking for it every time, but big match Taguchi. Let's have it. Like
live by the sword, die by the sword when you think about the Taguchi match today, too.
Well, you know. Well, but, you know. All right.
Are we going to the 23rd, or we all talk about the brackets first?
Well, go ahead and talk about the brackets.
Yeah. And then we'll get to the Taguchi rant.
Yeah, and you know the thing about that, it's well, all right. So go ahead and talk about the A block here.
Okay, so going into this night, we ended up having Lio Rush and Hiromu Takahashi and Mike Bailey all at 12, but Hiromu was suffering from tiebreakers because he has lost to Lio Rush and Mike Bailey, making them the leads in the bracket with Titan and Taiji Ishimori both in the contention. Unfortunately, Taiji Ishimori out. That left Titan as the only threat going into the final night of bracket play. And then Desperado, Master Wato, all with 12. We got Robbie Eagles with 10. Their their matches are all tomorrow. I do not have the rundown on it right now. We're going to get to that after the 23rd, but man, let's get to this night one match and your Taguchi rant.
What I'm saying about Taguchi is we know that he's capable of this kind of thing. Now, in the very last match there, he faced Kushida, and they did a really good match between the two of them. Again, Kushida's whole story has been that he's working this kind of an MMA thing where he's grounding these guys and trying to get submissions, and the problem is he kept getting rolled up in flash pins. This was another one where he ended up getting beat. Taguchi actually got the win in the end, and the crowd was thrilled that he got the win. They didn't give us everything we wanted, which was 100% straight Taguchi, no clowning thing, because Kushida ended up grabbing the trunks, and we ended up looking at Taguchi's rear end through a lot of it.
The crime of getting butt stuff in trade for Kushida getting his first pin of the best of the Super Juniors is the live by the sword, die by the sword of New Japan.
I suppose it is, but you know, it is also fair to say, by the way, that Taguchi didn't do it. It was Kushida pulling his trunks down. It wasn't Taguchi trying to clown. It was like it just kind of ended up there. But
I replayed it twice to make sure it wasn't Taguchi doing it to himself.
No,
I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah, I know it. You can't get everything you want right there. So,
Taguchi had to have an exposed butt to finally get a win. It feels like his story was he was going to be serious to get his wins at the press conference at the beginning. It couldn't end any other way.
So the situation going into this, there were a couple of matches that did not factor, or one match, that didn't factor into the standings, which was Sho and Doki, and Sho ended up beating Doki after tying him up in the back and a bunch of House of Torture crap we don't have to get into. We went to the final two matches. TJP, of course, won by forfeit over Ishimori, which is another one where both guys were eliminated going into the to the final night anyway, score-wise. So probably would have been a really good match too. But after that, we had Mike Bailey against Lio Rush. The positioning of this match as the semifinal was interesting because they had 12 points each, whereas Titan with 10 was in the main event against Hiromu. Of course, it was going to play out exactly the way it needed to. Bailey and Rush, if either one of them won the match, whoever won the match, right, was going to be the block winner, because
winning you're in.
Yeah, winning you're in, because Hiromu could get to 14 points, but he couldn't win any tiebreakers. So you're stuck on this one. So because he had lost to both Bailey and Rush. Now, in this one, I kind of thought that they might go with Bailey as the match went on. If you had asked me at the beginning of the tournament, would they go with Bailey or Rush in this situation, I would have said Lio, because he's staying. Lio's a regular New Japan guy. As this tournament went on, I felt more and more confident that Bailey was at least going to make the semifinals. And he did end up beating Lio. But what surprised me about this one was that Lio was the one that ended up with tiebreaker issues here because of the main event. So anyway, Bailey wins the block in the semifinal, which is a little bit odd booking wise, but it meant that Teton and Hiromu Takahashi wrestled each other, where both guys had to win in order to move on. So Teton goes in there and they have a terrific match with Hiromu and Teton. Of course they do. You know, they're faction mates and all, but both of them excellent wrestlers. And Teton ends up getting the win here over Hiromu Takahashi, which did surprise the living hell out of me. What that meant was the Teton ended up with the tiebreaker over Lio and ends up moving on. So Mike Bailey and Teton, an Impact guy and a CMLL guy, are the two representatives out of the A block. Hiromu Takahashi and Lio Rush do not move out of that block. That surprised me.
So, listeners, if you're trying to visualize this, imagine a 1, 2, 3, 4 seed. Mike Bailey is the 1 seed, and he's facing the number 2 seed in Lio Rush. Hiromu is the 3rd seed, and Teton is the 4th seed. And they are facing each other. Because Lio Rush lost and because Hiromu lost, the 4th seed of the bracket immediately jumped to number 2 because he had tiebreaker wins over both of those opponents previously, thus eliminating the 2 people who had the same amount of points with him at this bracket. It was incredibly complex booking, and it worked fantastically.
And it was very, very clever because only in retrospect, realizing that Ghetto always kept Teton 2 points behind the leaders. All the focus was on the guys at the top for great reasons, because they were all great matches and they were all such exciting guys. But Teton was always just like 2 points behind him. He never fell far behind. So then at the last night, he gets to just come up and he got all the right wins along the way. And then he picks up this win over Hiromu and just jumps into it when 2 shows earlier, I wasn't thinking about Teton much as far as being a finalist. Yeah, very clever. And if you want to see some algebra, let's get into the B block booking, because let's take a look at the B block standings over here. There's the finals of the A block. We know what's going on there. B block. So we have 3 guys with 12 points: Desperado, Yo, Wato. Robbie Eagles is a stalking horse here at 8. The crucial point is that Eagles is going to be wrestling Desperado the final night. So that's the big match. Yo is going to be wrestling Yoshinobu Kanemaru. If there was ever an upset special, that was it, right? Master Wato facing Kevin Knight, another interesting one. Do you want to hear the scenarios for this one here, Jeremy?
I think we should.
Whew. All right, get ready. Get your pencils ready. Thankfully, I got a guy who writes under the name J. Michael for Voices of Wrestling kind of spelled all this out in the most clean way I've seen so far, which that's a clever pen name, by the way. J. Michael Kenyon, who has passed away in the last few years, one of the great wrestling historians of all time. So I think that might be a bit of a nod to him. Anyway, we're going to get into this here. All right. If Yo wins and Master Wato loses, Yo wins the block with 14 points. After that, it gets even more complicated. So and I barely want to get into all this. So if Yo wins, he wins the block with 14 points, but that puts Master Wato back, is stuck at 12. Then if El Desperado and Robbie Eagles draw, Desperado advances, Wato's eliminated, Robbie's eliminated. If Desperado beats Eagles, Desperado advances, Wato's eliminated. But none of that matters so much, as he writes, because if Robbie Eagles defeats El Desperado, we have an unbreakable 3-way tie at 12. Because they would all have the exact same tiebreakers over one another, like a little round robin of tiebreakers. So
I feel like that could give away right there that they are.
That's not happening, right? Yeah, that's a little bit too much. All right, let's move on from that one. So let's go the other way with this, which feels a little bit more likely. And J. Michael wrote the same thing: a win by Master Wato over Kevin Knight. You know, Kevin Knight's definitely an upset special, but it feels like Wato could win that one. But Yo losing to the wily veteran Yoshinobu Kanemaru, who went through a losing streak in the middle of the tournament and faded away from importance after having a hot start. He won his first 2, then lost a string, and we kind of forgot about him. Except maybe he has a huge impact on the final night, right? You know, It's a very good possibility. So if Master Wato wins and Yo loses, then you've got Wato is in, right? El Desperado then defeats Robbie Eagles. Desperado would win the block with 14. Wato ends up in Oh no, yeah, Watto would actually end up in second place, tied with 14, but losing the tiebreaker. So he would be the second place guy. Yo would then be eliminated with 12 and Eagles eliminated. But if Robbie defeats El Desperado, Watto wins the block outright. Eagles advances to 12 points with wins over both Yo and Desperado. The fact that Eagles has tiebreakers over Yo and Desperado makes this kind of an interesting scenario here, because it seems like those things happen for a reason, doesn't it? It's just one of those things. So, and if both Yo and Watto win, Yo wins the block, he'd have 14 and hold all the tiebreakers. Eagles is out, and then there'd be a whole big mess right there. So it feels like either Yo or Watto will trip over the final hurdle, but not both. Doesn't seem like both. So one of those guys will move on, and then we'll see what happens with Desperado and Eagles. So Eagles might be able to sneak his way in by getting a win over Despy and slipping his way in there and joining either the winner of Yo or so that's kind of how it's going right. But there,
who do you think are the two that are going forward?
I think we're going to see Desperado and Watto.
See, I think we might see Desperado and Yo. I think Yo might have. Okay, so the argument for Yo is that he is wrestling looser and he has had a longer tenure on the roster. Mm-hmm. And with Lio Rush not advancing, you could do Yo and, create some tension with that. Master Watto, on the other hand, had a campaign in 2022 going into Wrestle Kingdom where he incredibly outkicked his coverage, and then he's kind of been backburnered ever since. So, which one do you go with? They're both in the same? Are they both in the chaos, or is Watto in Hantai?
Watto's Hantai.
Okay, so, and there's not really title implications other than Chaos has the never open weight titles right now, but they can lose them at Dominion. Ooh, I'm going to go with Desperado and Yo.
Okay, I'm going to go with Desperado. I'm sticking with Desperado and Watto, I think, and with Watto in second place because of the tiebreaker thing, and then that would put us with let's figure that out. That would make Master Watto in with Bailey, and it would put Desperado in with Titan.
Desperado and Titan sounds great. Or it could be Bailey and Yo or Bailey and Master Watto. If you were telling me which one I would rather see, I kind of want to see Bailey and Yo.
Okay. That's fair
because of the Bailey and Lio match was so tremendous.
Yeah, so if my scenario plays out, I would see Desperado and Mike Bailey, with Desperado getting his first Super Juniors. That's just my
Mike Bailey? You got Mike Bailey winning the whole thing?
No, with Desperado winning.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I think Desperado's the guy. I would not be shocked if there was some type of contract implication with Impact that if they got Speedball Mike Bailey, that in the contract for Best of Super Juniors, if he had to advance out of the bracket.
You never know what kind of deals they make. They might just said, well,
like everybody benefited from this, but contract to contract, and I could see certain stipulation being thrown in there to make sure, everybody's on the level.
But it does show you just how intricate Ghetto's booking is, that he keeps all these people and all these scenarios alive. And he said it, Brad mentions it here. He's a genius to be able to do these round robin tournaments multiple times a year. Yeah, he does it with tag leagues. He does it with G1. It's really a game of chess that he plays. That's very impressive. And Watto being in this until the final night is really wild. It is, but I do think he's stepping up. Again, is he on the same level as Desperado and Hiromu? No, but who on earth is? I think those two kind of occupy their own plane, with Lio Rush knocking on the door. And boy, I've been very impressed with Bailey too. Watto is better than almost every other junior out there. It's just that he's standing next to Hiromu Takahashi and El Desperado all year. It's tough.
I think the other thing we need to keep in mind is that both New Japan and Impact are probably keeping Speedball Mike Bailey incredibly protected, so that he can face Will Ospreay at Multiverse United 2 in August.
Okay, let's do that. I'm down. Yeah,
let's get that go back that we didn't get in April. Sure, but all of it makes sense. It's like Speedball is a special talent, and he has hit something special in his presentation in the New Japan Best of the Super Juniors tournament. I have seen him in Impact. I have seen him in GCW. This is not Speedball in Impact, and this is not Speedball in GCW. He is hit a part of the formula on this show with these talents that I have not seen, and he has elevated his game immensely for it. And if he were to win the whole thing, as Paul Fontaine famously predicted, I would not be upset. I would be a little shocked, but I'd be less shocked now after seeing the campaign that he had this entire Best of Super Juniors than I was before he had a match with Hiromu.
I think here's the reason I'm picking Desperado, by the way.
Yes.
I mentioned that they have worked very hard over the last few years to make Hiromu Takahashi into the next Jushin Liger. And it makes this generation's Jushin Liger, that dominant force that is always a part of the title picture, always a part of the Super Junior picture. Liger needed a Black Tiger. He needed an El Samurai. And I think it's El Desperado. I think that this is the guy they're going to put up with as the guy that is the yin to the yang, so to speak. Muhammad Ali had to have Joe Frazier. And I think they're just like, we have to have a guy. And every time Desperado and Hiromu have faced each other in a big situation, whether it's a title match, a Super Junior final, it's been magic. They work well together beautifully. And I think that this is part of, you've got to make the guy and put them up there, not quite as equals. I think Hiromu is always going to be on that Liger level, but someone's got to be down there as the Eddie Guerrero Black Tiger, or the like I mentioned, El Samurai. I mentioned Great Sasuke for a while was a terrific rival to Liger. I think they need that guy, and because right now Hiromu is by a good distance the biggest star in the junior division. With that said, you need somebody else. You need another guy that's almost there. He doesn't have to reach that level, but I think that's why they're going with Despy this year. That's my theory. We'll see in the next week.
So by this time next week, we're going to have a contender for Dominion. Is that correct?
Yeah. By this time next week, because we'll look at the schedule tomorrow morning at the Edion Arena in Osaka. Of course, the main matches, the primary ones that count toward the standings: El Desperado against Robbie Eagles, Master Wato against Kevin Knight, and Yo versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru. I'm going to hit refresh on NJPW1972.com right now. And as I speak, on their website, the New Japan website, they have not announced an order for these matches yet. So usually that's a clue as to what they're doing, as to what ends up in the main event. They have not announced the exact order of the matches.
That is tomorrow morning or 2 days from now?
Yeah, no, that's tomorrow. That's Wednesday, May 24th.
And then we have a Friday show, and then we have the Sunday show. I will be watching the Sunday show after the Sweet Party for F4W before I go to Double or Nothing. It's going to be an insane day.
What a crummy week you're going to have. Good.
I will be coming back with multimedia presentations, taken on my phone. It'll be great time. Maybe
wait a minute. We're going to send you to We're going to send you to a place where weed is on every street corner and turn you loose with those graphics programs.
Weed is already available at every street corner.
Oh, that's right. You're in San. I forget where you are. I forget. I'm in Austin. It's pretty much.
Yeah. No. The legislation is way different here.
Well, I mean, in Austin, it doesn't matter so much.
I'm very excited for the week. I'll come back with live results. And if you see me in Vegas, I will be around the F4W Sweet Party. I will be at Double or Nothing. If you recognize me, please come up and say hi. I will be weird because I'll be like, oh, people are saying hi to me, but I'll be flattered, and feel free to say hi, please.
And one last prediction from the audience. I think we're getting Despy versus Speedball in the final, with Despy taking it. This is Brad thinks Speedball and Lio have a title shot in their back pockets thanks to beating Hiromu in the tournament. Well, if that's true and they go with Desperado and they have Speedball and Lio Rush, what kind of title matches are we about to see? This is going to be wonderful, right? I can't wait. What a mix.
It's going to be time passing during the G1.
man, this is going to be so great. So if it's because I sound a little giddy, it's because, well, one, I have a new puppy in the house, so I haven't slept since Saturday. But more than that, so I'm slap happy. But like I said, maybe the best Super Junior tournament I've seen since the 1990s. There's such a bright future for New Japan right now. Crowds are going up. I mentioned the biggest post-pandemic crowd at Korakuen Hall. future just looks really bright. We've got a terrific Dominion card that we're going to go into next week as well, because we're getting right up to that. Then there's this combined show with Noah and All Japan coming. Then it's Forbidden Door. Then is New Japan going to be part of the Wembley show?
You got the Independence Day, New Japan Strong. And
we didn't even get a chance to talk about that. Yeah,
we'll
so
talk
much
about
going
next
on.
week.
Lots to look forward to. Lots to look forward to. Jeremy, as we sign off here, we're almost out of time. With all that to look forward to, where can people find you?
You can find me at Jer Finestone on Twitter. You can find us at the Discord. Email gg@FightGameMedia if you'd like to join that. Steven, go for it.
And I'm at Stephen Conway 88 on Twitter, and you can find me here again next week with Jeremy. We're gonna keep doing the show, and Colin hopes they keep it to this format from here on. In Best of Super Juniors, he likes the wild card. It certainly has shaken things up and given us a lot of possibilities for the final night. Which is, imagine what he might do with the G1. You never know. So with that in mind, for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Strong Style. We'll be back next week to go over all this and more. We'll see you then.